Okay, ready to dive in. We're tackling loving God fully today.
Sounds good to me.
This book is all about, well, loving God fully, but like actually doing it, putting it into practice.
Yeah, it's not just another theoretical book. It's about taking those big ideas and figuring out, okay, how do I actually live this out?
Exactly. So it starts with these two kind of big commandments.
Loving God and loving your neighbor, right?
Yeah. The two pillars, the book calls them, love God with like everything you've got and love your neighbor, like you love yourself.
Which is honestly sometimes easier said than done.
Totally. But here's the thing. The book argues that these aren't just like suggestions. It's saying they're the key to a more fulfilling life.
That's a pretty bold claim. I mean, it makes sense, but to say it's the actual recipe for a better life.
Right. So how do we actually do it? Thankfully, the book gets into the nitty-gritty. First up, heart work.
Hard at word.
Yeah, think of it like this. How do you cultivate a real close relationship with God? It's about making that connection genuine, not just going through the motions.
I like that because it's easy to fall into routines,
Yeah.
but this is about really nurturing that connection,
Exactly. So we're talking about prayer that's more than just a wish list, really connecting with Scripture, and worship that, like, truly moves you.
not just going through the motions, like
Yeah,
you said.
yeah. And you know what's cool? The book emphasizes that there's no one-size-fits-all here. What works for one person's spiritual practice might not work for another.
Absolutely. We're all wired differently.
Yeah.
And it even encourages being creative.
Right. Like painting, journaling, anything that helps you connect. It's about bringing your whole self to the table, not just a Sunday best version.
I love that. And it makes it feel less intimidating, like
Mhm.
you can connect with God through things you already enjoy.
Totally. Now get ready for this next part, soul searching. Sounds intense, but
A little bit, yeah.
it's really about being intentional about your spiritual growth.
Huh.
It's like, how do you actively nurture your spiritual life?
I can see that. Like putting in the effort to grow.
Yes. So think. Structured Bible study, really reflecting on scripture, maybe even exploring spiritual disciplines. It's about carving out time to connect with not just God, but also your deepest self.
Those are important too, those quiet moments of reflection.
Totally. And then it takes a turn for, well, I don't know, maybe unexpected. We get to mind matters.
Mind matters.
Yeah, this part really fascinated me. It's all about the power of your thoughts and what role they play in your spiritual life. Which, when you think about it,
It makes sense. Our thoughts shape so much of how we experience the world.
exactly. And this section dives into how to align your thoughts with, like, God's will.
Yeah.
There's biblical meditation, replacing those negative thought patterns with, truths from Scripture.
It's almost like a mental detox.
Yes. Like a mental workout routine, but for your spirit.
I like that analogy
Ah,
because it takes effort, right? You don't just wake up with a perfectly aligned mind.
for sure. And get this, the book has actual exercises for what it calls mind renewal, like practical steps to take.
So it's an active process. You're not just passively absorbing information, you're actively shaping your thoughts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered the heart, the soul, the mind.
That's a lot of inner work.
It is. But loving God fully doesn't stop there. It reminds us that it's not all about thoughts and feelings. Get ready for strength and action because this is where love gets real.
So it's about action now, taking what we've learned and putting it into practice.
Exactly. It's like the book says, you've done the inner work, now let's see that love in motion. It's about taking your love for God and translating that into tangible action, especially through service to others.
Like putting our faith into practice, showing our love through our actions.
You got it. It really emphasizes that faith without works is dead. It's about actively looking for ways to be the hands and feet of Jesus in your community. It challenges you to look beyond yourself and ask, how can I make a difference?
That's a good challenge.
Mm.
It's easy to get caught up in our own lives.
Totally. And it doesn't just throw you into the deep end. The book provides practical guidance on how to identify needs within your community and leverage your unique skills and resources to make a real impact.
Yes, it's about being intentional with your actions, discerning where your unique gifts and passions can best serve others. It really personalizes the idea of service, making it feel less overwhelming and more achievable.
It even frames service as an act of worship, which I thought was a really interesting perspective. It's not just about checking things off a to-do list. It's about approaching service with a heart of love and devotion.
Absolutely. It elevates service from a mere duty to an opportunity for spiritual growth and connection. It's about experiencing the joy that comes from aligning your actions with your faith.
Okay, so we've talked about loving God through action, but what about loving our neighbor? That's where love in action comes in. The book really breaks down the often misunderstood concept of loving your neighbor as yourself, and it gets surprisingly specific.
Yes. It goes beyond vague notions of kindness and delves into the nitty-gritty of navigating real-life relationships, family, friends, even those challenging individuals we encounter daily.
It emphasizes empathy and compassion as the foundation for all relationships, encouraging us to step into the shoes of others and view the world through their lens. And it highlights practical ways to express love in all sorts of situations, from celebrating victories with a friend to offering a listening ear to someone who's struggling.
And it doesn't shy away from the tough stuff either. It offers practical guidance for navigating disagreements with grace and respect, emphasizing the importance of seeking reconciliation and understanding.
It also dives deep into the transformative power of forgiveness. There's this really powerful section on forgiveness power where it talks about forgiveness not just as a one-time event, but as an ongoing process of releasing resentment and embracing healing.
Yes. It highlights how forgiveness is essential for both the person being forgiven and the forgiver. It's about breaking free from the chains of bitterness and resentment, allowing yourself to experience true freedom and wholeness.
It even uses compelling biblical examples to illustrate the power of forgiveness. Joseph forgiving his brothers, Stephen forgiving his persecutors. These stories remind us that forgiveness is possible, even in the face of unimaginable hurt.
And it's not about condoning or minimizing the actions of others. It's about recognizing that holding on to anger and resentment only harms us in the long run. It's about choosing to release those negative emotions and embrace the healing power of forgiveness.
Speaking of powerful concepts, the book dedicates a whole chapter to service spotlight, really emphasizing the importance of actively meeting the needs of others.
It encourages readers to look within their communities, identify those in need, and find practical ways to make a difference. It's about recognizing that even small acts of service can have a ripple effect, brightening lives and strengthening communities.
And here's something interesting. Did you know that studies show helping others can make you happier? The book touches on the personal benefits of service, from spiritual growth to increased happiness and even physical well-being.
I love that it highlights the interconnectedness between serving others and experiencing personal fulfillment. It's this beautiful cycle of giving and receiving where the more we pour ourselves out for others, the more we find ourselves filled up in return.
It's like that quote, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others.
Absolutely. And speaking of finding ourselves, loving God fully reminds us that true fulfillment comes from aligning our actions with our values, and what could be more important than demonstrating love for God and love for others.
So true. And it stresses that respecting others is a fundamental aspect of loving them. It's about treating everyone with dignity, recognizing their inherent worth as image bearers of God.
It challenges us to view every person we encounter through the lens of love and respect, recognizing that everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and compassion. And it emphasizes that respect should be the cornerstone of all our interactions, regardless of differences in background, beliefs, or opinions.
And it doesn't just tell us to be respectful, it provides practical guidance on how to do it. From communicating effectively to navigating disagreements with grace, the book offers a roadmap for building healthy and respectful relationships.
Yes, it's about replacing judgment with curiosity, criticism with empathy, and conflict with understanding. It encourages us to approach difficult conversations with humility and a willingness to listen and learn from each other.
And finally, it all comes together with daily love, which encourages readers to find ways to integrate these principles into their everyday lives at home, at work, in every interaction. It's about making love a habit, a way of life.
It's about recognizing that loving God and loving others isn't about grand gestures or heroic acts. It's about those small daily choices to extend grace, offer kindness, and be a source of light in the world.
It's like you don't need to wait for this big dramatic moment, you know? Life is the stage.
Exactly. It's about bringing that love to those everyday moments. Choosing kindness even when it's hard, patience when you'd rather be frustrated. It's about forgiveness.
And those choices, even the small ones, they add up, right? They make a difference.
Absolutely. It's like that saying, do small things with great love. That's what this is all about, making love a habit, a way of life.
Totally. So as we wrap up, I keep thinking about those two pillars we discussed, loving God, loving others. The book seems to say those aren't separate things at all.
No, they're completely intertwined. When you love God more, you're able to love others more genuinely. And when you pour love into others, well, your love for God grows.
Yeah. It's like this incredible cycle makes you think, What could happen if we all focused on those two things? Nurturing our love for God, then expressing it by loving others.
It's a powerful thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the best part is the book gives us the tools to actually do it. It's not just theory.
Exactly. It's like we have the map now, and it's up to us to start the journey.
And as you go through your day, facing challenges, celebrating victories, remember these words. Let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God.
Wow, that's beautiful. A good reminder that love isn't just a feeling, it's a choice. And it reflects God's love living in us.
Exactly. It's about showing grace, offering forgiveness, choosing kindness, even when it's hard.
Because ultimately, love is powerful. It can heal, it can bring people together, and it can absolutely transform lives.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep loving, and keep making the world a better, brighter place, one act of love at a time.